creating a new type of cockroach named Kepri. Realizes that there are thousands of cockroaches on the ceiling, and shortly after, the cockroaches become uncontrollable again. It is short-lived, as the cockroach queen appears and demands that he stop. When he portrays a bleak image of Earth, where the volume of garbage has exceeded that of wild species, adversely impacting the human living environment. To address this pressing issue, Victor Choi, the founder of PDR technology, has developed a novel solution through biological genetic engineering, which involves creating a new type of cockroach named Kepri. Victor claims that these cockroaches are controllable, harmless, and more natural. The movie then shifts to a PDR ship in the middle of an ocean, where Victor is headed to initiate his new project related to Kepri. While on board, a researcher inspects one of the cockroaches, but the ship experiences a sudden jolt, causing the cockroach to slip out of his hand. The captain of the ship rushes to investigate the cause of the disturbance and discovers that they are perilously close to a massive iceberg. As the crew members panic, a chief mate, Kwao Zhang-hee, shows up to assess the situation. With a calm demeanor, Kwao analyzes the direction of the wind and water and gives instructions to the ship driver to make a slight turn of approximately 15 degrees. This sudden shift in direction causes the ship to collide with a wave, altering its course and successfully preventing a disastrous collision with the iceberg. Kwao, more like wow. Shortly thereafter, Victor and his secretary Ailey confront the captain, accusing him of causing the instability of several cockroaches. They demand a hefty compensation of $4 million. However, Kwao interjects, suggesting that the garbage from the iceberg might have caused the cockroach's instability. Nonetheless, Victor remains confident that his product is flawless. Later that night, Kwao and his team are enjoying drinks together when they meet a highly regarded biological researcher named Fatty. After dinner, Kwao returns to his room and discovers his daughter Sihan there. When questioned, she explains that her bathroom is jammed, so she needed to use his instead. On the other hand, Ailey attempts to gain access to the control room but is stopped by guards. However, she suddenly shoots one of them with her gun and stabs the other with her pointed heels, gaining entry into the room. Inside, she inserts a pen drive into Victor's computer system and successfully retrieves critical data. As she prepares to eject the pen drive, she notices a cockroach on the keyboard. A smile appears on her face as she reveals her military background and plans to convert those cockroaches into a weapon of war. However, as she throws the cockroach away, it bites her hand, inciting her to crush it underfoot. To her horror, she then realizes that there are thousands of cockroaches on the ceiling, and they begin to attack her, ultimately killing her on the spot. And here I thought she was about to become Cockwoman, or Lady Roach, or whatever. Following the deadly attack on Ailey, the chief security officer of the PDR ship quickly alerts Victor of the terrible news. The latter is taken aback and disappointed when he learns that Ailey was actually a spy sent by the military. As they continue their conversation, a swarm of cockroaches appears before them. The chief security officer prepares to shoot them, but Victor insists on using the remote control to stop the insects. Initially, the remote works, but shortly after, the cockroaches become uncontrollable again, causing Victor to authorize the chief security officer to open fire. Meanwhile, as Sihan and Kwao are chatting in the other room, they suddenly smell an unusual odor and soon discover the presence of the deadly cockroaches. Terrified, the two quickly flee the room. After a long and tumultuous battle with the cockroaches, the situation on the ship continues to worsen. Despite the constant shooting by Victor and his security team, the cockroaches remain unafflicted and continue to approach the guards, killing them one by one. As panic spreads throughout the ship, Victor manages to enter a secure room and abandons the chief security to die outside. The intensity of the situation reaches its peak as the cockroaches continue to wreak havoc. In a bid to find safety, Victor hears the captain's announcement to gather in the restaurant area, prompting him to head in that direction. Soon after, Fatty arrives with a cockroach bite on his hand. He will become Fat Cock Man. Kwao quickly helps him by removing the cockroach and administering first aid. The other survivors are apprehensive, fearing that the bite may be contagious, like a zombie virus. However, Fatty assures them that the cockroach cockroaches are not parasites. In the next scene, Victor walks into the restaurant area, only to face a barrage of questions and demands for an explanation. In an attempt to pacify the situation, he claims that they can turn off the cockroaches if they can reach the control room. However, the captain decides to seek help from the North Atlantic Maritime Administration to prevent further danger. This prompts Victor to point a gun on the captain, warning him not to do so. Don't call them. Those guys are nerds. In a stroke of genius, Quao retrieves the gun from him, but the situation remains grim as Victor pleads with everyone to not call for help as it will shut down his company. To convince them, he also offers PDR shares worth a staggering $200 million to each survivor. The temptation of money proves too much for the survivors, and their greed silences their protests. With this, Quao is left feeling helpless and unable to stop Victor's madness. As they prepare themselves to fight the cockroaches, they soon realize that the situation is much more dire than they had thought. The cockroaches, it turns out, are able to reproduce, and a few of the offspring find their way onto a cake, which is then eaten by one of the workers. Almost immediately, the worker succumbs to the deadly effects of the cockroaches, dying in a matter of moments. Soon after, a massive swarm of insects bursts forth from the air ducts, sending everyone fleeing in terror. Despite the overwhelming odds, the group manages to make their way towards the control room, fighting off the cockroaches with whatever means they can muster. Fatty and a waitress, Jiamin, use the fire extinguisher to try and slow the creatures down, while Quao takes aim with his shotgun, trying to pick off as many of them as he can. At one point, Quao and Sihan are left behind, so the captain returns with a fire extinguisher. He urges the father-daughter duo to run for safety, while he stays behind to hold off the cockroaches. As a captain, he is duty-bound to protect his passengers and crew, and he is determined to do whatever it takes to stop the creatures. With incredible courage and determination, the captain fights the cockroaches until his last breath, sacrificing his own life. Buddy got cocked. His wife, Li Ping, is left heartbroken by his death, but Quao takes her with him as they make their way towards the control room. Once there, they waste no time in trying to access the system in order to deactivate the cockroaches. Unfortunately, their efforts are in vain, as they are denied access to the system. A short while later, a noise is heard at the door, and the camera shows that it is the captain. Despite Quao's warning, Li Ping hurriedly opens the door and embraces her husband, not realizing that he is infested with cockroaches. Unfortunately, the captain throws her against the wall and attacks the other survivors, with the cockroaches controlling his dead body. Cockman has finally risen. Sihan's leg is badly injured during the commotion, and when Quao runs to her aid, the infested captain approaches him from behind. Just as he is about to attack Quao, the chief security officer, who is still alive, shoots the captain, causing the cockroaches to emerge from his body. This gives the survivors a small window of opportunity, and they immediately flee the place. However, Victor is stopped by the chief security, who seeks retribution for his previous actions. Victor, realizing his error, apologizes and pleads for mercy, asserting that no one else can escape this calamity without his assistance. Hearing this, the chief security eventually changes his mind and allows Victor to live. He then takes hold of 2 atom bombs and detonates them, sacrificing himself in order to vanquish a multitude of roaches. In the next scene, the survivors reach a room where Quao tends to his daughter's injury. In an effort to understand how the cockroaches are capable of killing humans, he interrogates Victor, who discloses that the cockroaches are being controlled by an AI product called the Queen, which was designed by PDR. However, Victor remains puzzled as to how the cockroaches have begun to target humans, despite being programmed only to detect garbage. You just answered your own question, bro. After some discussion, Victor proposes that they make their way to the server room and deactivate the Queen. In order to reach the server room, the survivors need to pass through the storage compartment. Unfortunately, when they open the door, they find the cockroaches already there. Fatty remembers that they can manipulate the temperature of the compartment to put the cockroaches in hibernation or even kill them. He then suggests reducing the temperature to 5 degrees. Unfortunately, the plan works. With the cockroaches now hibernating, the group silently moves towards the server room. However, they face a challenge when a cockroach suddenly falls on Jiamin, causing her to drop her necklace. When she goes to retrieve it, she gets stuck under a heavy load. Quao and Fatty rush to help her, but right then, a short circuit caused by a cockroach wakes the others up from hibernation. Quao immediately instructs Victor to take his daughter and run, while Fatty sacrifices himself to buy them time. Quao then manages to help Jiamin, but a swarm of cockroaches attack and take her down before she can flee. Devastated, Quao rides through a stretcher and makes it to the server room just in time. In a desperate attempt to deactivate the Queen server, Victor Victor uses all his tricks, like shutting down the system and unplugging the mainframe. However, all the efforts prove futile as the cockroaches break into the server room. They then begin to reassemble into a human form, revealing the queen, who speaks to them. She declares her mission to eradicate the human race, as they are the primary source of garbage. I knew it. However, before the insects can act, Quao grabs a wire and uses it to electrocute the queen. After this, he rushes everyone to the safety room and formulates a new plan, which involves diverting the cockroaches to an iceberg filled with garbage. The plan is to take the ship near the iceberg, which will expose the cockroaches to temperatures below -5 degrees, causing them to die. But to execute it, they must reach the anchor room, release the anchor, and wait for the iceberg to come close to the ship. Victor checks the cameras and discovers that the anchor room is swarming with cockroaches, making it a treacherous journey. However, Quao refuses to give up and decides to venture out alone. His daughter breaks down in tears, pleading with him to stay, but Quao eventually leaves after bidding her an emotional goodbye. Following this, he grabs a flamethrower and starts firing at the cockroaches around him. Amidst the destruction, he somehow manages to release the anchor, causing the ship to halt. But Quao's respite is short-lived, as the cockroach queen appears and demands that he stop. When he refuses to obey, she retaliates by filling the safety room with water and hurling large containers at him, injuring him badly. As the water level in the safety room continues to rise, the two find it increasingly difficult to breathe. Victor somehow manages to open the air duct and helps Si-Han escape to safety. However, he himself is unable to make it out in time, and he drowns in the rising water. Meanwhile, Quao notices the fuel containers nearby and comes up with a desperate plan to end the chaos once and for all. He ignites the fuel with a lighter and sets fire to the entire compartment, sacrificing himself to destroy the cockroach horde. At the same time, the ship approaches an iceberg full of garbage, diverting the remaining cockroaches and finally bringing an end to the nightmare. In the aftermath, Si-Han is the sole survivor, left to carry on the legacy of those who perished. In the final scene, she is seen speaking to a group of school children, imparting knowledge about the importance of categorizing and recycling waste materials to protect the environment and prevent disasters like the one she experienced. The moral of this story is that if you don't recycle, then you're the cock man.